Salut Nomad! Thanks for joining us today for another edition of the Virtual Nomad Talks. I'm Safia, one of the co-founders of Nomad Junkies. Have you ever dreamed of living in Amsterdam, embracing life to the fullest like the Dutch? I'm sure you can imagine yourself biking along the canals, enjoying art, food, and culture in liberal Netherlands. To talk to us about why you should go to one of the most vibrant and multicultural countries in Europe for your working holiday visa, let's welcome our guest, Steph Trong.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
Hi, Steph.
Hi. Thanks for
How are
having
you
me.
doing today?
I'm doing well. It's pretty warm here in Toronto, but I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing very good. It's a nice month and we're enjoying the weather. But you're here today to talk to us about the working holiday visa you did in the Netherlands. So, what drove
Mhm.
you to apply for a working holiday visa there? And we want to know the real story.
The real story. Yeah, it's kind of funny, actually. I was dating someone at the time who had an interest in studying overseas because he had dual citizenship, and he asked me to join him. And I'd always had an interest in living overseas, so this seemed like the perfect excuse to take advantage of. So I saw that there was a working holiday visa available for people of my age and Canadian as well. So I thought, why not? It's too good of an opportunity to pass up.
And isn't the working holiday visa such a great opportunity for Canadians? Because, as you said, having the EU passport allows you to travel everywhere. But for Canadians between the ages of 18 and 35, you can pretty much go anywhere to travel and work in about 30 countries. And I also did it in Australia, but I wish I knew earlier that you could visit so many different places, and especially in Europe, there's so many destinations that you could go to, and you can work and travel for up to 2 years in some of those countries. So
Mhm.
basically, work your way around the world. So I'll put the links in the comments if you're watching. If you want to have more information about the cost, how to apply, and the various requirements for a working holiday visa. So tell me, how did your family and friends react to your decisions to work and travel in the Netherlands?
Well, they were pretty supportive. At first, I think my parents were a bit apprehensive because, yeah, they're from China and Vietnam, and they moved to Canada to, give me and my brother a better life, as they say. But so to them, to hear that I wanted to leave this idyllic paradise of a country was just super shocking to them. But in the end, they came around and they were really excited for the new adventure. And my friends were obviously thrilled because they'd have somewhere free to stay in the Netherlands. But they're obviously, I mean, I hope a little bit sad to have me so far away. So a lot of mixed feelings. Yeah. But ultimately, very supportive and encouraging.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Mhm.
And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how it was to apply. So, can you just guide us through a little step by step on how you applied and prepared for the working holiday visa in the Netherlands?
So because yeah, the working holiday is actually pretty simple to prepare for and get because it's open to such a wide age group of Canadians. But prior to leaving, because I like to be prepared and the whole move overseas was a bit intimidating, I
Yeah.
called the immigration office in the Netherlands a couple times to ask what kind of paperwork I needed and documentation that I had to bring and if I could complete the application in Canada before I arrived. But the lady I spoke to was super nice and she reassured me that I could just basically arrive. And because we're Canadian, you have the 90-day tourist exception. So you can stay there
Right.
for up
The
to three
Schengen area.
months. Yeah, exactly. And I just booked an appointment with the immigration office for the first week or two that I was there. And they processed my application there. And then that day I left, I got a sticker in my passport and just had to wait maybe another week or so to pick up my residence permit for the year. And that was it. It was pretty pain free.
So, you basically applied for the working holiday visa while in the Netherlands.
Yeah, exactly. I had everything prepared. Like I had my birth certificate, passport, and I think proof that you could fly back home. So
Okay.
showing that you had enough money in your bank account to return. Then yeah, I
Yeah.
just arrived with all those items, and it was processed very quickly from then on.
So, did you feel you were prepared enough when you arrived?
I mean, in terms of the paperwork, yes, but everything
Yeah.
else kind of happened as I lived there.
Okay, that's good. And as we're talking about living in the Netherlands, can you tell us a bit more about what are the main differences between living over there in the Netherlands versus living in Canada? And did you have to adjust or adapt your way of living?
Something specific in the Netherlands is to maybe so be aware that you can't really just lock your bike anywhere, which is what I thought when I first moved there. So if you're careful and taking a look at your surroundings, you'll notice that sometimes there are signs that say geen fietsen, which means no bikes. But obviously, this happened my first week there, so I wasn't familiar.
Aware.
I'd locked my bike up really close to the train station, which is a big no-no. And I went in to do an interview and I came out and the bike was gone. And I thought, oh no, someone's stolen my bike. This is terrible. And then I go on Reddit to see like what I can do in this situation. And there was a thread that had come up that apparently it's like the bike police almost. So they drive around in these huge trucks and will spot bikes that are locked in the wrong spot and put a sticker on it. And you have maybe 30 minutes to collect your bike. But oftentimes you're not back in time, so the bike will be missing. And then if they post like a bike mugshot on this website, and I just saw my sad bike and it'll say, it's been collected at the depot, come pick it up. And it's in like the middle of nowhere and you have to pay to take your bike back. So I had to do that twice. So I did not learn the first time, but that is a very special little tidbit of information I would give.
So the best advice is watch where you park your bike.
Yes, exactly. I think a lot of the differences are pretty nuanced because they're both really comfortable places to live, of course. And thankfully, a lot of people in the Netherlands do speak English, so it wasn't a huge adjustment. But it was a bit jarring at first to, learn basics like the street signs, understanding what those meant in Dutch, or, going to the grocery store, understanding all the different vegetables and packaging, and seeing eggs not in the fridge, for example, was kind of an adjustment. Or cycling everywhere, which depending on which city you live in Canada may not be feasible.
Yeah.
And it's also a very international and vibrant country, lots of expats, so that might be a bit of an adjustment because growing up in a Canadian city, you might have grown up with the same circle of friends, but there you meet people from so many different countries, nationalities, walks of life. I think those would probably be the most prominent differences I can think of.
And here I thought Canada was so multicultural.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but if I think about like prior to leaving, all my friends are just people I've known my whole life. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a big step to move abroad in a new social circle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what steps did you take to find a job? Because I'm guessing you worked when you were in the Netherlands. Was it easy? And also, what kind of work did you have?
Yeah, so I'm a designer and illustrator. And before I had moved, I was actually, again, super anxious and keen. So I tried to set up as many interviews as possible for when I arrived. So when I first got there, I was just doing some freelance projects for some local clients and some clients of mine back in Toronto. But I ended up, going through quite a few different interviews and ended up getting a job with a tech company. And I worked there for the year. But a caveat of that is a lot of companies may be a bit apprehensive to hire people on the working holiday visa because it does lapse after a year. But the perk is that this company I found is on this list of recognized sponsors, so it's called, and they have the ability to give you a knowledge migrant visa, which would allow you to stay in the country indefinitely, so long as you're employed there. So, it wasn't it was as difficult as, I guess, any environment to find a job. There's a lot of work into applying, but thankfully, in the digital world, there's lots of opportunities, and the Netherlands has become kind of like a tech hub as well. So I think it took me like 3 months, 2 to 3 months.
To find a job.
Yeah.
And are there any specific websites that you would recommend to visit, or any job boards that you found were easier for you to find a job?
So I was using Indeed for a bit, but this was a long time. This was maybe 4 years ago, so maybe it's not the most reliable platform now. But I know LinkedIn was my job, a recruiter had found me on LinkedIn, so I would try to keep that up to date as well. And I changed my location to the city I was living in, to Rotterdam, and that way I was attracting more recruiters from that area.
That's a good tip, to change your location on LinkedIn to help recruiters find you.
For sure.
Did you speak Dutch before? Like, if you don't speak Dutch or you're learning, is it still possible to find work in Netherlands?
So I think this is largely dependent on the type of work you're in, but like I said before, almost everyone speaks English, but I did not speak any Dutch prior to moving there, but I did try to learn while I was living there. And while it might not be like an enormous asset to your job, depending on what type of company you're in, because a lot of them are international, right? So they just
Yeah.
speak English in the office. But I did find that it helped me socially. Not that my Dutch was great, but I think just the fact that I made an effort, a lot of my Dutch friends really liked it, and I started meeting more Dutch people. And yeah, it's also
I
just an
think it's
interesting way.
important. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
important to integrate, just to have a few words. I feel like people, like you said, they feel like you're making an effort, and
yeah,
it helps you navigate the social circles.
exactly. I could make some pretty mean small talk in Dutch for a while.
That's amazing. So now that we've talked about the work part, what about the travel part of the working holiday visa? Where did you
Oh, that
travel in the
was
Netherlands?
so towards the end, because I'd moved just in the midst of COVID. I saw a lot of the Netherlands. So
Yeah.
like I went to some of the islands, like all the little villages surrounding Rotterdam, and then some of the other major cities. So they're called the Randstad, which are the three or four major cities.
Okay.
But then otherwise, I mean, the traveling was by far the best part. I mean, amongst other things, but one of the best parts of the experience because you could go to so many countries with such ease. Take a train, bus, rent a car, short flight, and you could be in Spain, France, Slovenia, what have you. It was
Yeah.
definitely the best part. Yeah. I think I took advantage of that for sure. I tried to go somewhere every month, and it was, yeah,
And
a
that
great
leads me
experience.
to my, I'm sorry, that leads me to my next question because you're already talking about traveling all over Europe. And I think it's amazing when you have that opportunity because I mean, it's pretty small. And like you said, you take a bus, you take a train, and you're already in another country. So do you have
Mhm.
any tips and tricks to travel cheap?
Yeah, okay. So sometime if you go on the train website, they'll show you the schedule as far out as like many months into the future,
Yeah.
maybe like a few months into the future, and you can see the price trends for what the fare is like. So you'll see, Tuesday's cheaper to leave for this day to go to Paris, or it's
Okay.
cheaper to leave on this Thursday. So you can gauge that. Also, there's something called Flixbus, which I think is also
Yeah.
available in North America as well. So you can go to, I mean, I wouldn't recommend that for longer trips because it'd be pretty grueling, but if you're going to a neighboring country, it's pretty easy. Or
Very cheap as well. I've
exactly.
taken Flixbus many times and it's very
Yeah,
cheap.
very affordable. And then also
Yes,
signing up
exactly.
also signing up for any of the local flight not hackers but people who keep an eye on the flights,
Okay.
and they normally have they'll email out like weekly promotions or monthly promotions of cheap flights to popular European destinations,
Yeah.
or stalking Google Flights and seeing the flight trends was also helpful. Mhm.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Steph, for joining us today and sharing your working holiday visa experience in the Netherlands. But before we take a few questions from the people that are watching, Steph, would you recommend to do a working holiday visa in the Netherlands?
Yes, without a doubt, for sure. I really, I mean, that experience has given me so much more than just, I don't know, a fun experience in a different country. Like I made lifelong friends. I learned a lot about myself. I had the opportunity to, work in a different culture and understand their traditions and quirks, and also had the opportunity to see so many other countries with such ease that I wouldn't have been able to do in Canada. But yeah, if anyone is feeling, nervous or apprehensive to do so, that's completely normal. But I would advise them to, lean into that feeling because it's a scary or nerve-wracking experience for a reason. Because you'll just, I don't know,
Have
it
the
was a
time of your
very
life.
exactly very meaningful experience to me. Mhm.
So buy the ticket and go.
Exactly. Don't look back.
So I'm going to ask you, the people that are watching, to ask your question about the working holiday visa experience in the Netherlands. So don't be shy. Write them in the comments below, and I'll pick two questions that we can ask Steph. So let me see. Someone is asking. All right. So while you were away in the Netherlands, what did you miss most about Canada?
I missed being able to make small talk. Yeah, so I had mentioned earlier that of course, a lot of people speak English and people are happy to, but in these little micro exchanges, like going to the cafe to buy your coffee or at the supermarket, you can't ask someone like, "Oh, how's your day? How's your shift?" La la la. So I would just try and quietly squeak by with my very bad Dutch just to make the exchange as natural as possible for them and not to draw attention to myself being an expat. But yeah, that'd be one thing I missed, aside from my family and friends. But now that I've been back, I've been like chatting up everyone, which is maybe a little annoying. But that was one thing I think I missed a lot.
So now you're the queen of small talk.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I see someone else is asking a question. I think a lot of people might be wondering, did it help your career to go to work abroad for a certain amount of time?
I think in some way, like, I don't know. I mean, I've only moved back maybe 4 months ago, 3, 4 months ago. So I'm not sure if I've been able to really notice like the tangible career benefit. But so I was working in-house there, but now I've decided to freelance. So I don't know if the two are necessarily synonymous, but just the experience of living overseas, in the beginning with a partner, but in the end by myself, gave me the confidence to pursue, these new career goals, make me less apprehensive. And I do think, yeah, I'm not sure if it's given me an edge in any way, but I think maybe it's made my resume look a little bit more interesting because you see like a little jump elsewhere. Yeah.
So if you have a question that we didn't answer, you can write them in the comments and we'll make sure to reply to every single one of you. And we also have someone from International Experience Canada who can answer any specific question that you might have about the working holiday visa. So if ever you decide to travel and work abroad after the pandemic, you'll find all the details on how to apply for every country, including the Netherlands, on the International Experience Canada website. So just check the links again in the comment. We'll put it there for you. Also, one last thing is we'll be covering many other exciting destinations where you can apply for working holiday visa in upcoming events such as Norway, South Korea, Czech Republic. So don't miss out on them. They're free, and we'll share the links of the other events down below in the comments. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and thanks Steph for answering your questions about the working holiday visa in the Netherlands.
Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Bye.